I am Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where along with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, we slice and dice all things politics, and some days, Donald Trump, too. Before we begin today's show, Matt and I want to thank you for your loyalty to our podcast. We appreciate your support, and so do our advertisers. Now, on this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, we begin with the astonishing piece filed by journalist Jeffrey Goldberg for Atlantic magazine, whose headline reads, "Trump, Americans who died in war are losers and suckers." It's quite a journey we take from there. COVID-19, Nancy Pelosi's Salongate, Joe Biden proves he's not the old doddering fool Trump wants voters to think he is, and Attorney General Barr is on our list of topics too. Let's talk. Here we go. Oh, welcome, my friends. And here's where we are this week. We've reached yet another milestone. Yes, a weekly event. There are more than 6.17 million cases of COVID-19 in the United States, more than 187,000 dead. And the outbreaks are continuing to spread via classrooms, barrooms, and via Trump and MAGA super spreader rallies. And as we go to tape, there are 59 days, 15 hours, and 7 minutes until election 2020. But we begin with an astonishing piece filed by journalist Jeffrey Goldberg for Atlantic magazine last night. The headline reads, "Trump, Americans who died in war are, quote, losers and suckers," end quote. So, Matt, quite the story. Losers and suckers. Oh, my.
Yes, it's already getting a lot of buzz already, and I'm sure as people listen to this, they may well have heard about it. It's from the esteemed editor of The Atlantic. I know Jeffrey Goldberg. I used to work in the same company as him. I've written for The Atlantic. I don't have any doubt that it's true. I mean, it's and in some sense, it's not entirely shocking because he's, you know, the things we know he said about John McCain, about about Azhar Khan's father, about other things. So it's in a sense, there's really, you know, it's. I think it would be very hard for someone to look at that and say, there's no way Donald Trump would ever say anything like that.
Absolutely. I mean, right.
So, you know, and it's, you know,
but
it's awful.
Yeah.
I also think at some level a novelist has to sort of take over here because it's such a weird
I didn't hear you. I don't
psychology.
understand what say that again. You think what? It's a novelist? What did you say?
Can I repeat it?
Yeah.
At some point, I'd like to read a novel about this because Trump's psychology towards the military is so twisted. He has this total veneration towards the military. He went to a military high school. And, you know, at the same time, he has this profound disdain for the essence of what they do, sacrifice and risk. And it's truly bizarre. And of course, the grandfather evaded military service in Germany. It's part of why he went to the U.S. So it's a, you know, and Mary Trump reports that the family threatened Don Jr. when he talked about wanting to go into the military. It's a very sort of twisty, weird psychology that he's got towards this, but be that as it may.
Yeah. Be that as it may. You done?
Be that as it may. Well,
because there are a couple of things here, Matt. First of all, it was pointed out to me, and I went back because I have the book, that in John Bolton's book, he addresses one of the things that Jeffrey talks about, which is that Trump wouldn't go to Belleau Wood, which was the World War I site, where the Marines were killed and buried. And in Bolton's book, it's canceled due to weather.
Well, that's what they said at the time, yeah.
But that's what's in Bolton's book. And he's like saying that that's what he was
right.
a part of. So there is that out there, and it's such a great story. And everybody's going to make, on the left wants to make hay out of it. I just wanted to put that in there as a reference.
No, I agree.
In complete fairness to the story. But it is utterly bizarre that John Kelly is standing there where his son murdered overseas, Afghanistan, buried, and Trump lays out with some of this crap, and then Kelly goes to work for him. And Kelly won't let anybody use his name. This I don't get. Sorry, you'll have to explain these people to me, because this is bizarre to me. So I'm saying, John Kelly, get out there and validate you're the source. Yeah.
Well, he would seem to be. Yeah, he would seem to be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very strange to me.
Yeah.
Very strange.
It's very strange. I agree.
Yeah. And these are just a couple of little tidbits I picked up along the way. Michael Cohen, by the way, said that, and I think he testified that Trump had said that he wasn't going to go to Vietnam. And I want to put this in historical context too, because Trump is of an era where I will tell you that people who I knew, because I grew up in a relatively wealthy community, they didn't go to war. And they did everything they could to get out of being in the draft.
Famously so, right.
Okay. So I don't put Trump as so unusual in that. His father bought him out. I can tell you 1,000 people who I know whose parents bought them out of having to go, until they messed with the draft and stuff like that. So I know exactly one person in my community who went, in my rather large, wealthy community who went, and he volunteered. And everybody thought he was crazy, and then he got himself out too. He bought himself out. So that, I want to put that into the context of what you're saying, Trump went to a military academy, but he wasn't any different than a lot of wealthy kids of his generation.
I agree. I agree.
He just has carried it. He's just carried it.
But this
carried
is now
it.
40 years.
I said he's carried it, and we've all gone through, our mea culpas and our. So I want to put that into the thing too. I'll tell you another part of this that I thought was incredibly strange, and that was, and I don't pronounce his name for me, Ben Dominic, Meghan McCain's husband, Federalist publisher. Yeah. This is weird to me. Now, this is Meghan is pregnant, almost due for delivery with his child, their child. This is all really about John McCain. We know what Trump said about John McCain, too. We all heard it. It wasn't like he hid it. And Dominic comes out and says, quote, "I'm confident I have better sources with this White House than Jeffrey Goldberg, and I expect that upon investigation, his anonymously sourced story will live up to the quality we can expect from the Atlantic under his leadership."
Yeah, well, I would say yes. It will live up to the quality of the Atlantic under his leadership.
I mean, but how does McCain live in the same house with this bozo? I actually had seen a clip just a couple of weeks ago on a rerun of The View when John McCain was on in the last days of his life. And it came out about, that it was marrying the son-in-law, and McCain said, yeah, he's even more far right than anybody I know. And disdainfully, by the way. So
I cannot explain anyone else's marriage.
All I'm saying to you is I needed to put that out there because I found it just extraordinary. I ask you this, though, because you and we're here for a different reason besides just telling you what's happened in the news over the week. But does this resonate with the voters?
I don't know. I mean, I think, we've seen other times before when we thought it would, and it didn't, like the original John McCain disparaging comments from 2015. So I don't know.
I do know his numbers are down. Trump's numbers are down with the military, which is unheard of.
That's what people have been saying. I don't know whether the fallout. I just don't know. I could see them going down. I could see, on the other hand, a lot of people not responding. So we'll see. Yeah.
And it gets us back to where we've always been. Is this guy is truly true? I think he's Teflon. And Teflon, 10,000 because they've gone through Teflon in so many different stages over the years. You know, I don't think you can nail him on anything real. I just don't, Matt. I just think it just goes right over with the group that needs to get him reelected.
Yeah, he could shoot people on Fifth Avenue.
And I think that's still true. I still think that's true. But I do want to address this moving forward a little bit in the conversation, and that's with the Dem gaffes. This was quite a week for Dems. If you know, how many times am I going to say if anybody can shoot themselves in the foot, it's Democrats. Biden didn't do it. But we'll talk about how well he's doing. Pelosi did it with Salongate. Andrew Cuomo did it with Thuggate. Your mayor, Bowser, did it with, let's take down some more monuments of important people. I mean,
right.
And you wonder, what? Help me out here. I mean, right? Nancy Pelosi, by the way.
Well, I haven't really followed. I mean, I know the gist of what happened with Pelosi, and it's one of those things that, you know, it's been totally amplified on the internet.
Well, what happened was the cute little twirl girl press secretary got the footage. It was a plant. She was set up, Pelosi. There's no question about it.
Right.
It was everybody was ready to go for it, and she got caught. It's interesting that that day was the day you weren't allowed to go into a salon alone. That was when the law went into effect. So, I mean, it was a plant. There's no question about it. But why is she going into public places to have her hair done? Honest to God, she can afford people to come into her home. This seems utterly weird to me. And by the way, it was her personal groomer who does her hair who said she couldn't show up, and I'm wondering whether she planted it too. Anyway.
Yeah, could be. Anyway, it's the kind of thing that bounces around. I think, you know, we'll look back on this period and think, why were we even talking about that? But yeah,
you say that, but I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't. And I thought about this because I knew you were going to say that. That's how well I know you. Because I think it's cumulative. All these little tiny things. Just like on the Dem side, because they're doing it too. But all these little things make a difference, Matt. They accumulate, and they start getting into your brain and moving you towards stuff. So I don't think it. I think because this is such a petty election, it's petty. That's where it's being fought. It's being fought in bitch school. We used to call it when I was a girl. It was the bitch school. Everybody was bitching at each other and playing games with each other. And that's what this whole election's, because, you know, what are we really talking about in any of this? So I think it's cumulative.
Okay. No, I buy that.
Okay. Polls. Polls are interesting. You know. So
are Lithuanians.
Oh, no.
Oh, opinion polls. Yes, they're interesting too.
I think the brain's gone. Well, you know, Biden's holding his own on the national level. But on the state by state, as we both have discussed ad nauseum, the polls are narrowing. But in some places, not as much as one might have even thought that they would. But in others, like Pennsylvania, his hometown, what are you? Is there anything there for you to talk about?
Well, I think there's, you know, overall there's been a lot of steadiness in the race. There hasn't, you know, Trump's been behind for a long time with Biden, pretty much in every poll since September of last year. You know, with a couple of small exceptions, his approval never gets very high, and the right track, wrong track number for the country which is always a pretty good indicator, is really bad for Trump. Now, you know, that said,
59 days.
Biden, 59 days. Biden can't really afford to give him anything to work with, and I think Biden helped himself a lot this way by coming down strong on rioting and looting. Now, it came late. I mean, he'd said things before, but you have to say things more than once. And I thought he did a pretty good job of positioning himself as saying, look, I'm the candidate of stability and law and order. He's nothing but chaos and fanning the flames. So I think he helped himself on that. He should really just, try to keep on that for a while, get that off the table before we go to the first debate in less than 3 weeks, or just about 3 weeks.
I thought his speech the other day was remarkable. One for the history books. I just thought it was brilliant. I really, really did. His going to Kenosha, that was kind of weird for me in one sense, and that is that when he sat down with these people, now we did have a mask on, boy, was he lethargic. It was like he ran up the stairs to show us how virile he is and in good shape on the plane, and then he sat there kind of like talking like this. And it was bad. It was bad. And they got to stop him from doing that. I know he thinks he's being sad and intimate, but if I was a director of the Hollywood or the Washington Hollywood set, I would say, Joe, no, don't ever go there again. You need to have energy. So that tape's out there. I wonder whether the law and order thing hasn't already outplayed its usefulness. Not outplayed its usefulness. That's not what I really meant to say. Is already yesterday's story. Is there much more mileage on it, even for Trump at this point?
No, I think that's a good question. Some of it depends on what happens. I'm kind of amazed that Democratic governor of Oregon hasn't really given Biden a hand by, tamping down this thing in Portland. Come on, give a guy a break. I mean,
right.
This thing's been going on for months.
But it's obscure at this point because it's out there and it's not like it was a couple of weeks ago. So it's like
I agree, but you never know if these things are going to erupt again.
Right, or flare up.
Yeah. Case in Rochester where they put the guy in the hood and he died, and then someone drove into Black Lives Matter protesters in New York last night. You just don't know where it's going to go, but. No, I think Biden can keep, saying that he's not just nice guy Joe, but he's like steady Joe. He's going to be competent Joe on COVID. He's going to do science and he's going to get stuff done. He's not going to be like trying to get you to take Clorox. And, put a UV light up your rectum or whatever, and he can just seem steady and calm. I think he's going to get to the other side of this. But, and he's got to have good debates, right? I mean, I think part of the problem is Biden is, after a good convention, is he's raised expectations of his performance for the debate. It's not enough for him just not to be doddering, as the Republicans accuse him falsely of being. He's going to have to do well. And I think the thing is, Biden spent years on the Senate floor. He's pretty good at these debates. He dispatched Paul Ryan pretty easily.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. So, we'll see. But, Trump's gone through a lot of these debates and done pretty well, too.
But he was up against a woman for the main story. And a bunch of feckless men, let's call it what it is, because they were all idiots, and that's why it was so easy for him to overtake them. Come on, he's going up. Think of the men that he went up against to get the nomination last time. They were all idiots. I mean, I don't think there was a sane one in the bunch. And Trump knew exactly which buttons to push on them because they were so,
Well, he's.
I don't think Biden fits into that camp.
No, I think Biden's a skilled politician.
Exactly.
He's going to be doddering. They'll have, they'll both have drinking the Red Bull. Or
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
Both will have had a Red Bull.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, that's really the next big.
Well, that's the only thing that's really, that's left. So we're ahead of ourselves on that because we got a while to go. Something else I want to talk to you. I got a long list here, so we got to move on.
Keep her going.
Here's the. I watch MSNBC a lot during the day, not at night, but during the day. Then I go to the other channels. But during the day, it's just kind of on in the background if I'm working. Something is happening that I'm concerned about, and that's with the young black progressives who are still not in with Biden. And you can tell by the comments that they make. And, MSNBC is making an all black channel. It's like 95%. No. Why not? Look, it is what it is. You got to look at the numbers and see how many of the people they bring in, to do color with them.
Seen that, but...
Oh, well, I have, because I watch it. It's like, Joy Reid's show is all black, commentators just about. There's nothing wrong with saying what's going on. But what's happening is you got the young ones in there. And the young ones are not fully invested in Biden. And it is showing as they speak. And it's going to be a problem. Younger. I'm not saying, yeah.
To be sure.
Yeah, young.
You're saying young progressive African-American voters are not sufficiently enthusiastic about Biden.
Correct. And listen, it is what it is, to coin a phrase. I think if the Dems need to work on them. Now, they also need to work on the Hispanics. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But they definitely need to work on these young African American because they're just not able to go 100% with him. They'll say, well, yeah, he did good, but he can't have it both ways. But I mean, I've got this written down 1,000 times as a quote. So I'm just raising the notion that this exists and this could be problematic. And I'd be interested to see how the elders work this, because the elder women, African Americans, who are the ones who are going to and his poll numbers, by the way, down with blacks is much lower than Hillary's were. Biden right now, which is kind of bizarre.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. So you might want to look at that. Same thing with the Hispanic vote, too, and particularly in Florida. That's where he's got problems. So, not the black vote, the Cuban vote. So, we'll have to look into that and follow through on that. I'm going to move to Bernie Sanders because there's just one thing I want to say about Bernie Sanders. A fan of who I am not. His politics is way too far to the left for me. But the old curmudgeon has found his inner mat, and it's a sight to behold. He's actually proving to be the best spokesperson for Biden that there is. Have you seen him?
Yes, he is.
He's
good.
It's a moment. Yeah. It's a moment. It's a beautiful. It's what democracy is about. You got to give the guy credit. You got to give the guy credit. He's coming through, and I just could not let that moment go by. Now, we're talking about the good things about democracy. Let's talk about the bad one. His name is Attorney General Barr. Oh, my God, Matt. Vote twice? Unsure if it's illegal? Huh? The Attorney General of the United States of America? You better calm me down on this one, because I'm about to blow.
Oh, blow. Just keep going.
No, I don't
want to try to keep you from that.
No, I don't want to go there, because I just think this is nuts. This is just... What an arrogant, weird man he is. How did he get there? Is this like pre-dementia? What the hell? This is not normal. This man doesn't even, when he speaks, you listen to him and you watch him and you say, are you kidding me? Who the do you think you are? Seriously. I mean, he is just a disgrace, and he sits there with that position, with the shoulder forward, a position of power. Oh, God, you want to smack him. If he were my husband, he'd be out. But I'm okay.
I'm still trying to imagine how he would get to be your husband. Yes. Point taken.
I mean, seriously, you please explain that. Explain this to me. And listen, Trump did this vote twice thing, which is a federal offense, for God's sakes. And again, the Dems just kind of go, oh, well, You better talk to me about this, because this is the reason they're gonna lose. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet. It's your turn. Maybe you don't want the ball.
Well, look, Trump said it. Democrats can make hay of it. Of course, Barr is gonna suck up to Trump and say anything and try to defend it. It's
Matt.
Nothing surprises.
This is the Attorney General of the United States of America, and he is completely lawless from what he did with SD&Y and trying to kick out what's his name. I mean, everything that he's done has got nothing to do with what's right for America, but for what's right with Trump. I just don't understand. I mean, and he's handing it to the Dems on a silver platter. I'm not saying that they need to take action against him via, Congress, but much more of this should be made of than is, because this is bad.
I agree.
They're just they're punting, and I think it's too soon to punt.
I hear you.
So this is crazy. And this morning, a story is way back in the whatever. Dems request probe of Hatch Act during RNC convention. That's like Dems are going to subpoena this guy and that guy. Dems, they put the stories out, and it's just, that's it.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think it's that they should be punting like this?
I don't know the answer. No, I don't think they should punt. I think the question is, what do you, every day you got to pick what you're going to do in terms of messaging. And, I think this is, they should take a shot at it in a larger context of Trump wants to steal the election.
I think Dan Rather was the one who said, if you follow anybody on Twitter, follow Dan Rather, because he's hilarious amongst being astute. And he said, you can vote twice, and just like you can get impeached twice. Something to that effect.
Right. That's a good line. That's a good line.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's filled with them, and he's just I wish he were back on the air, really doing daily commentary at this point. He says it like it is because he doesn't have to not say it like it is. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts weekly at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device too. Just say, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Biden hauled in $364.5 million. Holy crap.
Yeah, big haul.
Not a word from Trump campaign.
No. They're just, no.
Okay, so why aren't the Dems saying, and just, biting Trump's ass, how much did you make this month?
Well, they should. They should get,
Well, this is what I'm saying. This is my whole art. See, there's a theme here.
Well, your buddies at the, Lincoln Project should do that.
Well, I don't care who it is. What do you mean, my buddies? I don't care who it is. Well, if you ask me, the Lincoln Project should take over Joe Biden's campaign. Not that Biden's doing so terrible. That's probably not fair to say, because he's done remarkably well, actually. And they probably are working his campaign for him in some respects. But seriously, if this were the Republicans, they would have just made such hay out of this. Ronna McDaniel, who is Trump's fundraiser, head of the what is it?
Head of the RNC. She's chair of the RNC.
Chair of the RNC, thank you. Who I call Cupcake, and have a running gag with her. It's amazing to me that she doesn't unfollow me on Twitter, but I'll give her, because every other Republican has. I mean, it's like,
right.
They've had it. But, she failed. She's failed. She's failed. Okay. I'm looking at my notes. I just want to quote Pence on one thing because it just cracked me up. To know Trump is to know someone whose word is his bond. My brain went to bondage. Come on. And I've been trying to figure out who he looks like since the day he came back on the stage as Trump's, vice.
Yeah.
The Glad man. Do you remember the commercials Glad?
He looks a little like the Glad man.
Right? Yeah. Glad man. Yeah. Okay. Just thought I'd mention that. I mean, he's just completely useless. And that's the way it is. Let's see. Where else do I go? Russians meddling. Let's talk about Russia meddling. Let's talk about them cutting off the intelligence briefings. And let's talk about the fact that it turns out, Trump's vote twice thing is being, what's the word I'm looking for here? Russia is saying the same thing. In other words, the message is coming vote twice from Russia, and it's coming from Trump. Some coordination thing going on there? I mean, you got...
Could be.
Yeah, it's awfully odd to me. It's awfully odd. It's awfully odd also that enough is not made, being made about this Russian interference again, and it's clear what's going on, and it's clear that Trump is in like Flint with it. You got anything on that? Because I just don't understand why this isn't major.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the intelligence community, is now not going to share as much information with Congress about counterintelligence and election interference, and they're not going to make personnel available for questioning, which is always the best way that these committees work, is they get the officials in behind closed doors and they talk things out. So this guy Radcliffe, who the former congressman who Trump has made the head of more national intelligence, really bad moves here.
So what do we do with this? Because the fact of the matter is this is going on, and we know it affected the last election, and my guess is that they've made even more inroads into this election, and that concerns me greatly. I'm just curious as to why this isn't being hammered into people's brains. But
it's a question of what the Democrats do with it, but also the Facebook and the other tech giants, what they're going to do to try to contain the damage from this. They keep saying they've got great plans for it, but it never works that way. Poison keeps getting in the bloodstream.
Right. And I'm concerned, Facebook said that they're going to stop the ads or something the last week of the election, but the stuff's already in the pipeline before that, so it's bullcrap. They can't. That's just
right.
That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not. The ads are just part of it. It's just all the fake planting of stuff.
Right. So that's all I have to say. Can I just also bring up the Trump stroke story? Is that one of those that you say, But that's a weird one too. Did he, or will we ever know why he went to the hospital that night?
Yeah, it certainly looks suspicious, and this idea that Michael Schmidt had that Pence was told to be on standby to assume powers of command for at least a little while in case Trump was under general anesthetic or something else. Yeah, it certainly seems, totally possible. Michael Schmidt's a really good reporter.
Well, he also said he wanted to make clear in the book that he does not say that anything about stroke. That kind of came out of the zeitgeist.
He never said anything about stroke.
Right. And it kind of came out of the zeitgeist. And, by the way, Trump just kind of ran with the word stroke as if he knew that that's what it was, because nobody else had said it. It was kind of a weird deal there. And, by the way, there is that footage right before that happened of him dragging his leg. So, yeah, I think so. I think that's it. Let's talk about the economy. Unemployment claims are down, but permanent layoffs are on the rise. By the way, the metrics for unemployment were changed as to how they reach those numbers. It was announced at exactly the time that they released all their numbers, and not one reporter ran with it. So it's not the first time Trump has done this. They keep changing the way they issue numbers. Now that we're going to talk about COVID in a second, my lovely governor is doing the same. Point being, Matt, there is, this is not okay. I mean, they're messing with numbers, and, you can be sure that if Larry Kudlow has anything to do with it, the V will be a giant V by November 3rd. But the one thing that everybody agreed on this morning on unemployment claims and what have you is that it's slowing down the recovery. And it's going to slow down more because this week all the layoffs are coming. I have a friend who was just fired from United yesterday. Worked for them for 23 years. It's coming. And Congress isn't doing anything to make it any better. By the way, let's go to that one. Let's go to why Nancy is holding out. Do you think she's right to hold out to get a better deal? To keep it, sacrificing people's lives so that the economy doesn't skyrocket between now and November 3rd? Is that her motivation? Or she's really holding out because she really thinks people deserve better than what the Republicans are willing to give? Doesn't it work better for Trump if he gets a recovery deal or a whatever they're calling it these days? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a good sense of what the smart thing to do here is. I mean, she's got considerable leverage, and there's a lot to be said for trying to use it. But obviously, you don't want to overshoot, and it cause a lot of damage. It can really backfire on you, and then you have to back down anyway. So it's a tough balance. In general, I respect your instincts on a lot of things, and but I'm not sure about this one.
Yeah, it's weird. But the other thing that's weird is she cut a deal with Mnuchin this morning on the budget, so that there's not a government shutdown. I would have gone for the government shutdown, but I'm a bit of a
yeah.
So it's all very strange. It's all very strange, and from Trump's point of view, it's strange too, because if they cut a deal and they stimulate the economy, that can only help him. I mean, he can't screw the deficit any more than it's already screwed. It's gone to places where no man has gone since World War II. So, I think there's something missing in all of this. We don't have the whole story here. Something crazy is going on. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Something. You mean in terms of the budget deals, or
the way they're dealing, the way each team is dealing? There's some understory that I think we're missing here, because some of this makes no sense. In other words, Trump benefits if they do a stimulus bill. The Democrats would get what they normally want if you do a stimulus bill. Now they're not going to do the stimulus bill. I think Schumer called it anemic, what they're offering, or something to that effect. It's politics, pure politics. But I can't wrap my head around which side is playing the best game.
Right.
And normally I can do that, and you can do that. But this is off the charts kind of crazy stuff. Trump, by the way, did you know this? Did you know that he appealed to the court to stop his tax returns from being released again?
Right.
And you know what he said in that appeal?
I don't think I do.
Well, let me tell you. He said that
Please
here I go. If they were released, it would harm him irreparably. Don't you love irony?
Well, I think he's probably right about that.
And you didn't hear about it, and you're one of the most knowledgeable people I know. Again, these stories are not getting out where they need to get out. I don't understand it. I think that we're having the same mistake, this is what I'm leading to, in this election as we had in 2016. And that is, the media is so spread out and so ineffectual because they don't really have a forum, because it's all so spread out and there's so much information out there. We're not getting the stories meted out for us, which is why people like you and I in our show is so important. Come here, folks. Right. You'll get the news. You'll get the nitty gritty, and you don't have to go anywhere else, because you're going to get lost if you go on that, traffic lane of the internet. Boy, I'm looking for the day when newspapers are delivered to our front lawns and we all sit down and have breakfast together and start reading the paper together and discussing the news.
Well, someday.
Not going to happen. Not. Early voting starts in North Carolina today. Okay, that's good. Can't wait to see how this all plays out. I thought I'd throw this out at you. So I wanted to talk to my local Democratic Party to ask a few questions. I just want you to know 7 days and no answer in my county. 7 days, 3 times a day, no answer.
You mean you just call them up because you've got a question?
Right. No answer.
Right, and nobody calls you back.
What do you mean call back? Nobody answers.
Yeah, nobody answers.
Call the DNC in Washington. Waited 40 minutes. Finally hung up. Just want to tell you, folks, these are problems. And they wonder why they can't win. Don't call the RNC. When you call the RNC. I didn't call the RNC. I'll try them next, but couldn't get through. From the sublime to the ridiculous. 11% of households can't feed themselves this morning. It's America under Trump. How about the Trump and the boogeyman dressed story with now being attributed to Devin Nunes? Did you know about that story? The black guys in...
I don't know that one.
You don't know that?
I feel ignorant.
Well, where have you been this week? Trump in one of his great...
Devin Nunes. It's been a while. I saw he was on a plane this week.
Well, without his mask on. Right. No, this was Trump at one of his, coming out of one of his rallies, I think it was. Watch out, because we saw planes of people in weird, dark, military style kind of dress.
Oh, I heard Trump's comments about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So now the president of the United States sees dead people or schizophrenic.
He sees Antifa people on a plane. That's what you mean.
They're dead people because who the hell is Antifa? Listen,
right.
I started Antifa. Did you? That's what I keep posting on Twitter. What?
Right. No, I did hear Trump's comments.
Well, it's about that. I don't know if it's funny anymore or whether it's. Well, you want to talk about your cans of soup in Antifa? Campbell or Progresso?
Right. The president said, right. Protesters are using cans of soup as weapons. I don't know if that's true. It might be. I don't know. That I don't know.
Yeah, we were just carrying around a big sack of cans of soup to throw at people because they're such an easy commodity to transport.
Yeah, well,
by the way, and cans of soup are not cheap anymore. They're like $2 a can.
Well, I think he's right. It probably would be a good object to hurl if you want to do some damage. It's pretty easy. As he went on at great length, it's a pretty good projectile.
What about paintballs? But, yeah,
they hurt. I don't know if anyone's using it.
They hurt a lot, by the way.
Soup.
They would, but paintballs hurt pretty bad, too. Paintballs. 175 former law enforcement officials endorsed Biden this morning because they call Trump lawless. It's interesting that they're former.
Right.
Kind of like Rick Snyder, Republican Michigan governor, former. Anybody who doesn't have a dog in the pony show is going with Biden. But if you're still a politician, your mouth is ferme la bouche. Yeah?
Yeah, I hear you.
No heroes here.
Yeah, well, still, take what you can get.
I guess. Cases of coronavirus are rising in Europe. Israel, by the way, had to close 30 high-infection cities. They're willing to go there.
Yeah,
America, not so much.
It is a big spike.
It's a huge spike, and it's not even November. It's not even October. When the flu is going to start making its ugly little way. around the globe. All right, COVID. They're forecasting 410,000 COVID cases by January because they just magically disappeared. It's funny. 410,000 COVID deaths by January 1st.
In the United States.
In the United States. Over double. I remember when Fauci said 50,000. Remember that?
I do remember that. But, the Republicans and sort of conservative cranks are kind of back to the these don't count because they're all going to die anyway. Well,
they're into herd immunity and they're trying it in Florida. They're actually trying it in Florida.
So what's the mood on the ground now?
So, I can only, this is what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you there's some crazy things going on in this state and it's really worrisome. First of all, Quest, which is everybody's favorite go-to for your blood tests, apparently lost 79,000 cases and then suddenly found them. If you go by what the government puts out, they are like an average of 3,400 cases a day. Now, Rebecca Jones, let me remind everybody who she is. She was the one who put the COVID monitor site up for the state of Florida on the internet and became something that other states picked up. This young woman, just a little genius about this kind of stuff. And then DeSantis asked her to fool with the numbers and she said no. So Trump said, not Trump, both, actually, bye-bye. And she was gone. But this girl didn't go gently into the good night. She took her skills and she has come up with a whole new aggregating thing, much to the dismay of the governor here. And if you go by what she says and you go according to Florida, now they're not reporting, Florida is still not reporting cases in schools. So she started, if you want to know how many cases in schools, she started with reopening schools site, Florida COVID, I believe it's called. Cases in Florida have jumped 15% yesterday, 149 newly reported deaths. 15%, and the state says it's at 5%. There's a problem.
Yeah, that is. And what's it like out on the streets there? People, more masks, more...
people are wearing masks, but they're taking them below their nose.
Right. That's
I really can't, it's funny. I really can't, tell you because I haven't been out. I've been working like a dog the last couple of weeks on some projects. And, other than going to the supermarket, I think I ran out Monday. It's business as usual. I mean, now they're talking about opening up the bars and the restaurants for inside stuff. I mean, and there's nobody who's telling the state that they ought to do it. He's opening up more. He's starting
Fantastic.
He's starting a whole new thing about let's open up more for tourism.
Absolutely.
And he's touring the state, and he's and DeSantis is touring the state and the schools with Trump's herd immunity new guy who's taken over for Fauci and Birx, who is a radiologist and doesn't know the first thing about a PDL. How do you pronounce that word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
whatever.
They couldn't get a chiropractor,
So my point being, darling.
I kid the chiropractor.
No, but you're right, exactly. But you get my point. In other words, I believe this is, and they opened up the nursing homes again. They opened up their nursing homes again.
What could go
wrong here? And so I'm simply saying to you, if you ask me what Trump has been up to in Florida, is they've been testing this herd immunity thing in the state of Florida. That's what I have to say. So,
well, that's,
it's worrisome. It's worrisome.
And can Biden win? Can Biden win Florida?
I think he's going to have a tough time because the Hispanics are sticking with Trump.
Right.
And unless he can make an
inroad with Hispanics.
He's doing too well. Yes. And unless he can make some inroads down in South Florida with the Cubans, which I don't see how how I don't get it. I don't get it. I have a friend who's from Puerto Rico, and he's drove Trump all the way, and it's just totally funny that he is, because he's a landlord and he has illegal immigrants in one of his houses that I'm aware of, and he can't get anybody to rent because nobody's renting right now. Nobody's leaving their old home, unless they're going to. I mean, just nobody's moving.
Yeah, nobody's moving.
Nobody's moving. In New York, they're moving, out of the city. That's understandable. But down here, nobody's moving. And people will come down here and bring all their disease in the next month when it gets cold. But he doesn't help, he doesn't help the Cubans. He doesn't help that word socialism. Anyway, no. So that's my answer. I think unless, he can figure out a way to get a message out there to the Hispanics in the state. And they're all different, because Venezuelans don't vote the same way as Cubans do, don't Puerto Ricans do. But there's a general amount he needs to get to win the state. So I think that's a problem. Andrew Gillum, by the way, is making an appearance with his wife on a show. I don't remember what show it is. And that's interesting to me, because he ran against DeSantis, and then he got into a lot of trouble over sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and had to go for help. And the reason I bring that up is because he was just massive in getting the felons paid to pay off their debt, because even though the state of Florida said we're going to keep the felons, let the felons vote, and we the people voted for that, DeSantis, of course, tried to stop it, because that was like enough people to blow the election for Trump. So Gillum's back. Let's hope that they can help these felons pay off, so they can cart the felons off to vote. Right. And that would make the difference. Just going to clean up a couple of things here I want to talk to you about. Ed Markey defeated Patrick Kennedy. I think the first time a Kennedy has been defeated in Massachusetts. That was interesting. I guess that was our generation. Goodbye, the Kennedys. Israel and Saudi Arabia are opening up flight lanes, and that's a good thing. AE peace flight, another one of those countries is coming in on the deal that Jared made. The debates, we'll talk about the moderators when it gets closer to that. And this was sad to me, and I wanted to close on this because we as journalists, the Pentagon today ordered Stars and Stripes to close.
I know, I saw that, and it's unbelievable. I mean, this dates back to the Civil War. This is the newspaper for soldiers and airmen and sailors, and it's shocking and very Trumpian and awful.
Why?
I assume they think it's been critical, and it's a very independent voice. It's not just representing what the brass thinks, and I can only assume that's why.
Well, he's down with the military. He's going to be down even more, and they need to hammer the hell. Now, I don't know if the military can pull him over the edge, but certainly in Florida, Pensacola, military got down. That could help if he loses votes there in Florida. So Biden, put on your Stars and Stripes, and
he should. He should try to get any
go to Pensacola and go.
Of course, not just the military members, but their families, their friends.
Right.
It has kind of a ripple effect.
Right. So that's where we leave it. Anything I missed?
No, let's just try to make it through another week with this.
God help us.
Let's just keep going, one foot in front of the other.
That's the way to do it, buddy. Nice to talk to you this week.
Right.
Talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.